There are a lot of things that are very interesting about being good at various different skills simply for the sake of being great and mastering those various different skills. And the reasons for this have nothing to do, at least not directly or immediately, with, and I say that not directly or immediately because we're not excluding possibilities, but it doesn't have anything to do immediately or directly with utilizing the mastery of any skill set for any type of external validation. And the types of external validation are social acceptance and monetary compensation. And maybe those two, I'll leave it at that. I'm sure that there are other nuances and a lot more, but those are really a lot of the things that we're talking about, because of course a lot of things fall under the category of social acceptance. You know, friends and family think you're cool or look up to you. There might be some interest in potential romantic partners, and you know, things like that, accolades, awards, and of course the monetary compensation has to do with profession, job, money, career, all of those type of things. But one thing that is seeming to be a pandemic, meaning it's in everyone's blood, right? That so many people are being pulled into this idea, whether it be dating, jobs, anything like that, that we do these things, that we master skills, that we practice, that we become better, so that there are people outside of us, other people should validate it, that we should be accepted, that this should be a goal, that and you know, of course there will be all kinds of things can be said that, well, you know, if you're not socially accepted and if you can't earn money, then, you know, you'll be ostracized, excommunicated, you can't earn money, that means you can't earn a living, right? And therefore you might as well just, you know, die alone, because you're going to be pushed out of society and you're not going to have resources, and on and on. And yes, those things are possibilities. But I'm not so sure about the whole dying part. If you consider how many people there are who are homeless, and to a lot of people seem to be crazy because they're out there yelling in the streets or talking to themselves or completely mute or covered in filth of some kind, right? And they're all varying degrees of this. It's all on a spectrum, right? Some people seem to be quite totally normal, so-called normal, quote unquote, right? So just because you're ostracized and alone doesn't mean you're dead. But there are various different kinds of death, right? There's social death, you know, ostracization, you know, that being excommunicated. All of that can seem to be death. Some people, there's even a lot of stuff going around now, you know, in various different forms of media, that loneliness shortens lifespan. I don't know. I don't have any direct evidence of this, and I don't look for things like that. What I'm saying is that any type of skill building, and, you know, for example, the things that I do on a daily basis, which I am a researcher and a student of and a communicator of metaphysics, which covers philosophy, spirituality, and science. and amongst other things. And I'm a daily practitioner and composer of lyrics and music, and a performer of dance, and I play various music instruments, and I'm a daily practitioner of martial arts and various different physical fitness disciplines, including yoga and calisthenics. And I daily focus on these things, and I have been, and I'm at least on internet record doing this for at least 20 years, because one of my websites, eym.hypnoathletics.com, has been online since March of 2006, and it is now March of 2026, although I do know that I began my journey much longer than that. But at least I could say that, it's actually been more like 34 years, at least, since I started one particular type of martial art called capoeira since 1992. But the point here is that one could say, dare I say of myself, because why not, that I have been on a lifelong journey of mastering these subjects. And a lot of the mastery of these subjects has been on my own and at my own pace, and in a lot of ways completely unconventional, and in a lot of ways unrecognizable by a lot of the mainstream and standard and conformist methods and ways of doing this. However, the results that I get are that I'm independently and sovereignly fulfilled and have my own inner compass, and have been consistently steered towards radical responsibility for myself without any external blame, because I don't do external petitioning, hoping that some force or some deity outside of myself is going to save me or make me feel better. I've never been under any illusions that anything or anyone is going to save me, or that life was ever going to be easy. And so primarily, all of the things that I do really are a form of self-defense. They are combat discipline. The music, the martial arts, and the physical training, they all fall under that category. Like the name of that 20-year-old website, right, is Hypno Athletics. And part of my mission statement is Hypno Athletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. And to the thesis of this recording, this presentation that I'm making, that the pursuit of mastery, if that could be a term, or the relentless, the consistent and persistent practice in the direction of perfection, right? Because a lot of times people say practice makes perfect. I say practice makes better. Or as my mom, I learned from, would say, there's always room for improvement. Right after everything happens for a reason, and right before, do what you love and the money will follow, which preceded, what do you mean can't? So besides the fact that there's always room for improvement, and that should just be the compass, understanding that, and that life is not hostile, but it is inherently full of friction. It's difficult. Sometimes it seems like it's hostile, and it may sometimes be. We may be living in a very hostile environment. We might be living in some kind of Matrix or Truman Show or simulation, or being an alien ant farm. I don't know. I just know what it feels like, and that a lot of times life feels like a struggle and it doesn't feel fair. But the solution to that is not to try to attach to others and to pretend like that external validation or even any kind of community of any kind whatsoever is the solution for what I'm feeling. Now, I do understand that there are people who have clinical issues, and maybe I'm one of them, because I just vacillate between rage and sorrow a lot of times, and then other times just kind of, at least content and unbothered, but mostly just really focused and motivated and kind of just on a mission, ambitious to improve myself in those ways that I've spoken about in metaphysics, music, and martial arts. Those are my own addictions, the things that I seek out to do because it just feels good. They're things that I've seen in the catalog of existence in this world, and have decided that these are things that are very interesting to me, and I just really feel good doing. And whether or not anyone thinks it's cool other than me is not the point. And I've realized that when your perspective changes to realize that a lot of things that you would be told, for example, when it comes to relationship strategies, career, and all kinds of various different therapies, and I'm not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist or medical doctor. I'm merely a lay hypnotist who is a master hypnotist that has a scope of practice being vocational and avocational motivation and self-improvement, and a PhD in metaphysical sciences, and a minister whose interest is in consciousness and living life on my own terms, but one that is filled with my own kinds of adventure. Not in a way where it's my truth, no, but things that, yes, would possibly be objectively considered to be cool and awesome, but because they're cool and awesome to me. Science, philosophy, and spirituality, musical talent and instruments of all kind, and all of the acoustic physics and rhythm science and dance that goes along with that. The awareness of my own body and the physical fitness and pushing it to the limits and all of the things that I can do with it. Those things are just cool and awesome to me. And that has been enough. And it is in this way that I carry on my existence. And going back to the thesis again, is that it is my suggestion, my recommendation that, hold on for a moment while I do this drop. All right, so I'm not exactly sure where I was, but let's pick up at the thesis and my suggestion and recommendation. And yes, suggestion is a pretty specific word coming from a clinical hypnotist. And the suggestion about the activities that we engage in and the suggestions of the types of activities which I just spoke of, for me being metaphysics, music, and martial arts, should not, and this is the nuance here, they should not be created solely for performative purposes, although they should be performance grade, meaning that if others were to experience what you create, it would be uplifting and inspiring to them in some way, right? That they're not just gonna look at what you're doing and necessarily dismiss it, but also another part of this nuance is, even if they are, we're not doing it for them. We have to find our own internal compass and realize that the things that we do, that our activities should first and foremost really be because we want to do it, that it feels good for us. You know, you have to fit somewhere in that do what you love and the money will follow. That mentality needs to be partially in the mind without the money that will follow part, right? Do what you love. Because what else are we doing here in life? And again, I'm not talking about not doing things performatively. And I know I said a lot of nots there. I'm not, right? I'm not suggesting to stay away from doing things performatively because I'm all about, being excommunicado. I really do know that community in a lot of ways is very important. But what I think also can be problematic is this either or proposition and these kind of scare and fear-mongering tactics that are telling us that lifespan is shorter without connection, and there's this loneliness epidemic, and it's just all of these things are ridiculous. The point is that a lot of this information really, and it's not really solely information, they're narratives, right? It's content. It's canned, it's contained, it's prescriptive, it's created in a certain way to get very specific and certain kinds of results, to sway, to tap into the emotions, right? To elicit responses. And even what I'm saying in some ways fits into that category. And sometimes it's inescapable. Yet I'm framing it in the context that I've realized, specifically from my point of view and my experience, which has then been guided by my academic and professional expertise from schools that I've studied with, and my degree in clinical hypnosis and metaphysical sciences and years of martial arts training and music and all of the studying and reading and things that I've done. These things also influence and guide the direction of my inner voice. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that there's a world that seems to be outside of me that exists, and I have to interact with people, and there are things that people don't like and things that people do like. However, I'm finding more and more that if we get too hung up on thinking that we have to do things in order to obtain that external validation, it adds an extra layer of pressure, anxiety, and depression. Hey, that's an acronym, PAD. PAD, pressure, anxiety, and depression, that doesn't seem to be necessary, although it seems to be part of the agenda, if there is one. I don't know. What I am saying is that it's probably necessary, more necessary than any of these other things, for us to decide to go about our existence in such a way as we're not unduly and without necessity adding this pressure, anxiety, and depression to ourselves, because we're seeking this external validation and community and thinking that we're alone and that we can't connect with people and there's something wrong with us because this is what continually keeps being said. And especially, I mean, there's all kinds of people that I get information from, that I study, that I research, and it's all across the board. There are business people, there are life coaches, there are gurus, there are politicians, there are celebrities, there are lifestyle dating coaches, relationship, all of these things. And one of the things that continually gets, pushed around is that we have some obligation to set ourselves up in a way that necessitates some kind of necessary, bonding of some kind. And again, I'm not against these things. I've been, a person who could be considered a serial monogamist, where I've had long-term relationships, and it's really nice to be in those kind of relationships. They feel good when you're sharing your life with somebody. But to conflate and confuse that which is familiar with that which is necessary begins to be very problematic, because we have expectations. So, and this is what I've been getting at too, is the change in perspective that really focuses on an understanding of learning how to be adaptable. That sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes in between, that there are all kinds of variations of our existence and the kind of relationships that we're in and the people we're around. Sometimes that fluctuates. I, for one, have been very used to getting a lot of attention, and I still am. It's just somehow the way that I exist, it just seems to come to me a lot. And I'm not naive to not understand why. I mean, the fact that I've been physically fit all of my life and decided that was very important, so I've maintained it. That I have various different skills and talents that I maintain, I get around a lot. I've traveled, I speak different languages. I'm not ignorant to understanding what it is that is interesting to people. I'm interested in a lot of people and in a lot of things, and I know that being interested seems to be interesting. It's just that I understand also that it's very important to understand how to navigate between the experience of these things and also the absence of them, the presence and the absence of these different types of social and communal experiences. And doing things solely for the purpose of that external validation. I think that it throws off some of our understanding of what we're doing when we have these kind of motivations that seem to be so externally guided. Now, here's the thing about that, and because it's somewhat it's paradoxical, which means that it doesn't seem to make sense. that when you focus, at least I know this of me, when you focus on doing things because you really have a passion, that you really love doing them, and you do it to the highest level that you possibly can, it somehow tends to attract the attention of a lot of people, so that in a lot of ways you can pick and choose the kind of company, like who you want to be in your experience. And I know there are a lot of people who have said certain things to me, that I have certain unfair advantages because of certain phenotype or my external appearance, and certain things that give me an advantage that some people don't have. But I'm not confirming or denying any of that. I'm not naive to a lot of things, but I also do work very hard and am very disciplined. So regardless of whatever natural talents and abilities I may have inherited from birth, I also put in a good deal of effort. And the effort that I exert, the force that I use, the energy that I burn, is because of the fact that I get a great deal of enjoyment from the things that I'm doing. And that's really what continues to move me forward. But it's taken me a while to realize that's what it is, because it's been my motivation. My motivation to do these things has been because it's appealing to me. I mean, I would see a lot of things, and yeah, there were people that were doing it and they were getting accolades and people were thinking they were cool for it. But I was doing it because I was like, yeah, people think that's cool, but I think that's cool. So why not do it myself? Instead of having to seek out all these musicians all the time to listen to their good music, or to fish for records and go to a store and buy records or order them online, just make it myself. See how much cool music can I make myself, instead of just sitting down and going to the movies and watching people do spin kicks and flying through the air and doing all this stuff and using all these cool weapons and nunchucks and spinning around. Why not just do it myself? Instead of wondering about life and the universe around me and just simply relying on the philosophers, the scientists, and the spiritualists and other people, the intellects, to just tell me, and only reading about it in the books, why not learn about it myself and practice the meditations and do the various different exercises, and then communicate it myself, create my own words, my own acronyms, my own systems. That's what I mean. And it's a very interesting thing that happens from it, that yes, a lot of attention gets sent your way because you operate at a high level doing these things, but also it often doesn't matter if you do or not. And I'm going to have to maybe explore a little further and see how much more deep I need to go on this, and check into how these supposed advantages that I have affect my outlook, because I know that these things do. And again, it's just because I seem to be able to operate in a way where I can completely abandon any type of community or connection as easily as I can reconnect and just be well received in most places that I go. So that's something definitely that I need to consider, what might be going on there. But from someone who has those options, it might not be as easy for me to understand people who don't have those options, or don't think that they have those options. And I'm here to say that what I do know, because I put in practice, consistent, persistent, relentless practice. I wasn't always good at everything, but I do know that when you do get good at things, then those choices begin to become more clear and they manifest. And not just manifest just out of thin air. It's not magic. I mean, the way that you are tends to, it definitely influences the way that you experience the world around you. And that in itself, just having things to do that you can do in solitude. There's something about that that is very self-centering, but not self-centered, although maybe that might be part of it, but it's also very fulfilling. I've given myself something more to think about. I'm Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.